Hello everybody, welcome back to another Tierline Productions video. This week we got a kind of a special one for you. We're going to continue on with our Grime Time series. I'm really excited about this. As I stated in, I think, my January project update, my ultimate goal for this series is to do one piece of rolling stock of each type, and then also do one of each Class 1 railroad. Today we're going to continue with that Class 1 railroad idea. I was lucky enough to have a friend donate to me his BNSF GEVO, number 7644. It is an Intermountain GEVO. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing weathered up best we can. I'm pretty excited to do this. I've actually never weathered a BNSF before, but I have confidence that it'll turn out great. And so let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to go over is kind of the things that you're going to need to work on this type of project. The first thing you're going to need is obviously going to be your pastel chalks. Again, make sure you don't get oil pastels. It's pastel chalks that you need. I've made that mistake before, and it's no fun. That's going to be your main source of weathering detail. You're going to need an X-Acto knife to grind up those chalks, brushes to paint the chalks on. I'm also going to go ahead and use this brown painter's marker in order to do a little bit of stuff. I'll show you that process later. And you're also going to need some sort of fine detailing brush, or these are almost like a Q-tip type of thing. They're made by Tamiya. I really like them, though. They work well. And then the final thing you're going to need is just some water and some acrylic black paint. What I'm going to do with this is create a wash that'll really get into the little fine detail areas of this locomotive, and give it a nice finish. So that's the stuff you're going to need. Typically, your first step in a weathering process is going to be to remove the handrails and anything that might get broken along the way. However, these particular handrails, I've tried to take them off, and they are very well glued in. So I made the decision that I think I'm just going to leave them in there and be careful, because I feel more than likely if they're going to get broke, it's going to be during the process of me taking them off. So we're just going to be careful. We're going to kind of try to work around them. It could be a little difficult up in here, but we'll do the best we can, and I'm sure we'll still be able to make this locomotive look incredible when it's done. So with that being said, the next step is going to be to mask off all the windows with some masking tape. I did also forget to mention that in there. So that's the next step, and we'll get right started with it. Alright, stay tuned, guys. Alright guys, so as you can see, we've gone ahead and gotten everything masked off here. Everything is ready for that initial coat of dull coat. One thing real quick though that I did forget to mention earlier is the fact that lately when I've been doing locomotive weatherings, is I've actually been just completely taking the wheels out of the locomotive. I do that for two reasons now. The first one is basically for cleaning purposes. A lot of times I would mask off the trucks, but it still would end up with very, very dirty wheels that would have to get cleaned for an extended period of time. So in order to avoid that, I just decided to start taking them out. And the second thing that I've been doing with them lately is actually to add a little bit more of realism. I've been actually painting them in a rust color, just to add a little bit more realism to the locomotive itself. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and put the initial coat of dull coat on here, and then I will explain to you how we're going to go ahead and do our washes. So stay tuned. Okay, so we've gone ahead and done our initial coat of the dull coat, and you can already instantly see that this locomotive is looking a lot different. The reflective sheen that we had before from the light is now basically gone, and it's looking a little bit more grimy already. So in order to do the weathering wash with the acrylic paint here, essentially the mixture that I've found worked best in the few times that I've done this is about 2 parts water to 1 part paint. So in order to actually achieve that, obviously I'm not going to need a ton of this stuff, so I think I'm just going to kind of wing it. You can basically tell by the consistency, so I'm just going to do, just a little bit of paint in the jar here. I'm actually using a measuring cup for this, and then I'm going to go ahead and try to basically do double the amount of water. So we're going to go ahead and get that mixed now. I'm going to use this brush here to do that. This might take just a few minutes, just because the acrylic paint doesn't always mix instantly with the water. So I'm going to go ahead and get this mixed, and I will show you guys the final consistency. Alright guys, so I've got the wash done here. It's all mixed up. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, I almost forgot my my golden rule of weathering here, and that's that you always fade first. That is always the first thing you do after having it dull coated. So what I've got here, I've already got my white powder pastel or chalk pastels into a powder form. I'm just going to take a little bit of gray so that it's not completely white, and that'll help it look a little bit grimier. We're just going to do 1 layer on this thing, being that it's a lighter colored locomotive. It's not, the Norfolk Southern black that's super easy to weather. Literally all you have to do on those is pretty much fade them, and then, do grime on the trucks for the most part. This one's a little bit more intricate just because of the color scheme, so we're going to add a little bit of gray in there to just give it a little bit more detail. We're just basically going to do a light layer over top of the entire locomotive with this chalk pastel mixture. It just kind of makes it look like the locomotive is been around the block a time or two. It's not going to be, the final layer by any means. It's just makes it look like the locomotive set out in the sun a little bit, maybe, that type of thing. So you just lightly brush it on, nothing too intricate there. It is going to take me a minute though, so I'm going to probably cut the video here and then just go ahead and do the full locomotive. Alright, so we now have the initial layer of fade on the locomotive. It probably doesn't look like it to you guys, just unfortunately due to the quality of the lighting we're working with in this room. However, I promise it's on there. We're going to go ahead and give the wash a shot here. We're going to try to kind of do it in a relatively inconspicuous area first, just so that in case something goes wrong, it's not going to be that noticeable. It's a level of precaution, really. So here is our wash mixture here. Ooh, got a little chunk on there still. Apparently not quite mixed. I'm just going to kind of try to do, the front of the locomotive here first along the sill. As you can see, it doesn't really go on, thick or heavy or anything like that. It's really, the full intention of this is truly just to get a little bit of grime into the small nooks and crannies that the weathering powders really aren't going to seep into very much. But I can already tell that this is going well. It's definitely a good consistency. I will real quick just show you how to deal with the excess here. You just really need a damp paper towel, not soaking wet, because you don't want to take it out of the little nooks and crannies either. Just slowly wipe it off. It might be a little tough for you guys to see it actually, unfortunately, just due to the quality of the light in here, but it is sticking in the little nooks and crannies quite well. You'll really be able to see it when we're using it in here where all those little ridges are. Would definitely want to make sure that it sticks in there for sure. So stay tuned, and I'll come back with you as soon as I have it all done here. Alright? Alright guys, so actually quite a bit of time has elapsed between clips here. It won't seem like that to you, but there's actually been about a 2-week break in between these short clips. But I did go back and kind of look at some prototype pictures of the locomotive, and I kind of got a better sense of what it looks like now. And honestly, I think I'm going to go back through with another coat of fade. The orange on this particular locomotive does look like it faded quite a bit, like it's been spending a lot of time out there in the desert sun. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and give it another coat of fade. You will see, hopefully, a little bit of what the wash has done. It's really, it's not meant to be very noticeable. It's kind of just a subtle change where you'll notice, maybe not on the video quite as much, but in person you'll kind of notice in the crevices and everything that there's just a little bit of grime. Makes the locomotive look like it's been heavily abused, basically. But I'm gonna go ahead and do one more coat of fade, just again with the chalk pastels, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of things with some prototype specific details on this particular model right after that, so stay tuned. Alright guys, so I did go ahead and do one more layer of fade to this particular locomotive. It's looking pretty good now. The next step now is going to be to get into a little bit more of the prototype detail. This locomotive does have some paint chips for some reason. I'm not entirely sure as to why, but it does. So that's going to be the next thing we're going to kind of focus on. This is something that I haven't really attempted before, but I'm sure I'll be able to get it looking pretty good. The way in which I'm going to do the paint chips might sound a little counterproductive. I'm actually going to start by painting the exact areas black, and essentially what that does is it creates a very nice finishing opportunity to bring that back up to the kind of the clear metal finish with just some regular paint from that. That way there's no BNSF orange that's kind of mixing together with the silver paint. It's just going straight over a black background so that there's no sort of discoloration in the paint. So I'm going to go ahead and get together the supplies I need to do this, and then I'll show you kind of the process as it goes. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Alright guys, so as you saw in that time lapse, I did get the little black spots on. I am just kind of waiting for those to dry. Might take a couple minutes, so in the meantime what I'm going to do is kind of go back through first with just an overall black layer, just to grime up the overall body. Obviously we did the wash already, which definitely did help the look. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through with just a little bit of the black Tamiya weathering powder and kind of just give a little bit more grime to the overall look of the locomotive, now not focusing on the kind of nooks and crannies themselves. So we'll see how that goes. As soon as that's done, we'll come back to focusing on the little black spots there, and then going through with the silver paint pen to get that all straightened away. So stay tuned. We'll go through with the black coat here now.
Just you make sure you're keeping your loving pure.
Okay, so we finished up the black powder, the black Tamiya powder,
the black paint has now also dried. So the next step now, after clear coating all of that, is going to be to put on the coat of silver to make it look like bare metal. I am using the color of this metallic Sharpie. However, in order to make sure that I'm kind of being as precise as I can be with the silver paint here, I'm going to go ahead and use one of these Tamiya Q-tips. I just kind of squirted a little bit of the Sharpie out onto palette, and then I'm just going to go ahead and kind of try to keep within the confines of the black paint that was put on initially with this layer of paint. So as you can see, I mean, it's kind of giving the effect that I wanted. It's looking like bare metal pretty much. Unfortunately, look, actually, there's a bit of a shadow, it looks like, on the camera here. Let me see if I can get that to change a little bit. Well, you can still see the shadow, but it'll have to do. I will go ahead and kind of just do a time lapse for the rest of the black spots here, just for the sake of time, though. So keep on watching that, and then we'll be kind of moving more towards the bottom of the locomotive after that, focusing on the trucks, the fuel tank, and the wheels themselves. So here we go. Okay, guys, so we're now all set with the chipped paint on both sides here. It is looking pretty realistic, if you ask me. I'll definitely be doing a little bit more to touch that up towards the end. I just want to, you know, kind of blend it in a little bit more, make it seem sort of like the rust has started to almost encroach on the chipped paint, which will naturally happen over time. The pictures I'm using are from 2016. So now that it's 2018, those chipped rust spots have had almost a full year, if not more, to really start to actually rust. And as many may know, when you have exposed bare metal like that, unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't really take long for it to begin to rust, especially if it's spent any time, you know, up north in the winter. But I'm gonna go ahead and now turn my focus towards the bottom of the locomotive. We're gonna give the fuel tank and the trucks a nice prototypical douse of dirt and grime. For the most part, it looks like the fuel tank is kind of a more browner color, so I'm going to go ahead and use some brown, a mix of a few browns, a little bit darker of a brown, as well as that lighter one that I just showed you, on the fuel tank itself. And then the trucks kind of seem almost like there's a little bit of brown in there, but for the most part, they're kind of a almost greasy black, like they've just been over greased or something like that. I don't know exactly what would cause that color, but that's what it looks like in the photos, at least. So I'll use kind of a darker brown, probably this color again, as well as probably a little bit of black to complete the trucks themselves. So I'm gonna go ahead and once again, rather than show you guys the entire process here, put it on a time lapse, and I'll be back with you guys as soon as the fuel tank and the trucks themselves are done.
Make sure you're keeping your loving pure, 'cause for you know some cracks may show, and I have to let you go, and I have to let you go, for fall. Yeah, son of the moon can fall, and the son of the moon can fall. Heaven and hell came out of there.
All right, so we've completed work on the sill completely here. So the trucks, the fuel tank, the air compressor, or excuse me, the air tanks, they're all complete. So far, they're looking pretty good. Unfortunately, this fluorescent light really is kind of washing everything out. Really, the only two big things now left to do are kind of to focus on the front end of the locomotive here. We did do the initial fade, and then we also, have to focus on the back. And then the other main thing on this is going to be to darken up all of the grills. That's a pretty big thing in a lot of weathering. You'll notice, most basic weathering on anything other than a Norfolk Southern locomotive, it's definitely going to have a lot darker grills around the radiator, just because, if it's not black paint, it's going to show all of the smoke and everything that's going to be coming through these grills. So what I have here is just that same mixture I really used on the trucks, the darker, greasier almost color. Just reusing a little bit of that before I make more for these grills to kind of try to focus on them a little bit. And then, like I said, we'll do that. And we will get the front of the locomotive kind of situated, and then that's going to be pretty much it for this this grime time, guys. But stay tuned, and we'll get you the finished project here as soon as this final time lapse is over.
You make sure you're keeping your loving pure, 'cause for you know some cracks may show.
Okay, so as you can kind of see, unfortunately, as has been the problem throughout the video, the fluorescent light is really just washing everything out, but the front of the plow area, the pilot area of the locomotive is now the color I want it to be, just a hint of brown, a hint of dirt. I did also, oh, that horn is a little loose. We'll have to make sure we glue that back on. But the roof has also got a little bit more grime on it. I just did a light brown around, a few areas just to add some real texture to it. Back sill is also pretty much done as well. And that is going to pretty much wrap up the locomotive itself. I do have one other thing to show you guys, and that's going to be how I'm going to go ahead and get these wheels colored a little bit more prototypical. As I mentioned before, essentially how I do that is using this brown paint pen and just a paintbrush. These things do need to be shaken before they're used, so that's what that sound is. And then you do just basically all I do is just take the paint pen, do one quick circle around, and then I take a paintbrush, a clean one specifically. Let me just get one of those here. All right, and basically you're just going to spread that paint around, trying to avoid getting it on any part of the wheel that's going to be making contact with the truck leads. So essentially that inside part, you may have to go in and kind of scrape off a little bit of that, which is fine. It's pretty easy to come right off. But essentially you're just, going to do that. You might need to do a couple coats just to get it perfect. As you can see there, a little bit of it is kind of coming off. Well, let's see if you can see it. Yeah. It's kind of coming off, so you might need to do just a little bit more, just to give it a coherent look. The wheels are typically, not very easily seen So I don't usually spend a ton of time on these. It's just kind of one little last-ditch effort to add a little bit of realism to the locomotive. So really, I mean, that's about it. I'm going to get this thing back together. I do have a couple of handrail repairs to make to the locomotive. A couple of them were like that when they came to me. A couple of them did happen throughout the process. Like I said, you know, at the beginning of the video, with these Intermountain handrails being glued in as well as they were, honestly, I was probably going to mangle them worse trying to pull them out than I did throughout the entire weathering process, and a little bit of glue will fix all of that. The glue I use, you really can't even, for the most part, tell that that a repair has been made, luckily. So we'll go ahead and get that done, and I'll snap a few prototype pictures to put here right at the end of the video. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I certainly appreciate you sticking around through this entire video. Again, it's been a great experience. I sure hope to be doing more of these grime times. As I said at the beginning of the video, my goal is to do each one of the Class 1 railroads. So I don't know if I'll be able to get another one done by the end of the year or not. But at least I got this one done, and we'll see where we go from here. Again, if you did enjoy the video and you're not yet subscribed, if you could go ahead and do so, it would be amazing. Definitely going to be more content similar to this coming out in the next few months. So thank you so much again for watching, guys, and have a great one.
You make sure you're keeping your loving pure, 'cause for you know